Regarding the dev conference, moving on to this agenda item, there's plenty to say. I just think it was a great event. And so what I shared, Chris and Claudio and I had a chance to get together for a nice small mesh PBL session yesterday. And I'll share the same headlines. One is it was just a really, really well-run event. K-Tours, so Matthias Bancourt, who has the Twitter handle K-Tours, is one of the founders of Ogmi. Well, he is the founder of Ogmios, one of the founders of Aiken, is working very closely with Cardano Foundation now. And Toulouse is his hometown, so that's why it was here. Just he and Arnaud, the other organizer, did such an incredible job. And one of the things they said was really important to them is that if we decide as a community to do this again, it's important that it is in different places every year, right? It would be so easy to just do the same event in Toulouse next year. But if to really do this right, let's try to have different event organizers in different places around the planet, and maybe soon enough, not even limit ourselves to once a year, right? This is a model that we can keep running with. So just that, it was such a generous, open-hearted, and well-run event with, I think, really good ideas in mind. I mentioned earlier, they ran open spaces. I'm just so over the moon excited that now we have a community of Cardano developers who have experienced open spaces. And there was some talk about, like next time we do this, maybe we don't even need to pre-plan any agenda because the open spaces are so valuable. And a lot of people's, one constructive critique people had of the event is that it felt like every open space ended too soon because there was always more to talk about, or people were just getting into the meat of the technical conversation. And that's such great feedback, right? That's the length of a session is a parameter that's easy to tweak. And now that people have had that experience, we can move forward with that. Overall, the vibe was good. Just collaborative. I don't think it comes as a surprise to many that, whatever's happening in the broader market, Cardano developers are focused. And so there's a really shared belief that we're building things that matter. There was a lot of conversation about the need, however, for, solutions that offer more utility. And so it's exciting to think about some of the work we're doing around here, looking beyond DeFi toward governance, learning how to work together, even in something like a session like this one that we do on Wednesdays and Thursdays. So it's good to be thinking about really holistically, the thought experiment that if Cardano actually were to make a positive impact on the world, like what would that actually look like? What would that mean? And I can't escape the feeling that some part of that has to do with governance. And as challenging as it might be to be a developer, it's always going to take hard work and ingenuity to be good at that. The stuff we're doing here is equally important. So excited about that. And then just broadly, like having the chance to talk to devs about design patterns and best practices, and to understand that in a lot of the work we've been doing, I think there was a lot of self-doubt among Cardano developers early on because, for example, we were promised a Plutus application backend that some people, myself included, we waited for it to arrive instead of really thinking about what it was supposed to be. And only, later than we could have, we realized what was actually being built and that there were ways to do it. And I think I went through personally a period of self-doubt. I was like, am I seeing these patterns correctly? Or am I just imagining things? And to be with people who had gone through similar experiences, and now we're really starting to be able to align on, no, here are some common challenges to development. UTXO management is always going to be hard. So we got to be real about that. And, you know, the list could go on. And I think we have a chance to communicate some of these concepts in Plutus PBL. And I can speak personally, I'll be bringing just a higher level of confidence to that course, having had a chance to talk about some of these concepts. So I know I'm painting in pretty broad strokes right here. Obviously, there's detailed stuff that we could spend more time on. But does anybody have questions, or is there anything you'd like to hear more specifically about?
I'm stoked that it was in France. I mean, you flew to France. That's awesome.
Yeah, to France and back since we last talked.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's cool.
Uh,
And who all was there? Was anybody else on the call there?
who's anybody? I'm not looking at the list. Where's my Zoom? I guess you know if you were there. Some highlights. I met John Adji for the first time. Man, it was so nice to spend time with.
Oh, that's super great.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I didn't know he was coming. So when he walked into the auditorium the first day, I almost cried. It was and got some quality time with Felix. Felix lives not too far away and used to live in Toulouse. So he showed us around and showed us where to get a good crepe.
Oh, nice. Is there like a link? Did you guys create like a document or like a was there an organizer sort of thing? Like, because now I'm interested. Now I'm like, oh shit, Felix and
Great
John were there.
question. Okay. So no, there was
But I don't, like it's
it,
just think,
it takes some pressure off to not have some public deliverable hanging over the event, right? And
yeah,
it
yeah.
seems like that's kind of where it came from. Let me drop onto this Miro board the Open Spaces board that we produced on Wednesday
Oh,
morning.
yeah, that would be super great.
I think I have a high enough fidelity image that you'll be able to zoom in and read it. Let me see if this works. Come on, AirDrop. You got this. Um, what else? While I'm doing that, Nori, I see you unmuted. What's up?
Oh, sorry. I just reconnected with my computer rather than my cell phone.
Cool.
It defaulted to mic on. Sorry.
Hey, hey. Uh, gosh, I wish I could
Well,
keep.
I think that, yeah, a developer conference, like figuring out like what are the developer issues and what are, what's, what we all talk about when we get into a room together, I think is pretty actionable intel. It's an important thing for us to keep at top of mind so that we're aligned, with like what is going on. Because things change in the ecosystem quite frequently.
That's right.
Um,
Um, and right, some of the conversations were protocol level, right? So in one room over here, you've got the geniuses from TX Pipe talking about how they're going to implement Cardano node in Rust, right? And so TX Pipe is leading the effort to give us a Rust native Cardano node. Blink Labs is doing the same thing for a Go native Cardano node. And Chris just has a really strong vision of building, for example, not a monolithic application, but to build the Cardano node as an aggregation of component parts, each of which can be scaled individually. And so a simple example would be not everybody needs the part of the node that's minting and verifying blocks, right? Only SPOs really need that. But a lot of people need the part of the node that's validating transactions, right? What if I could just scale up the validation part, but not the block producing part? And so things like that, and that's just one example of kind of the protocol level work that's happening and what people are thinking about. There were conversations about Hydra, for example. There were some really interesting conversations. Some of you know Juan Salvador from Spain. He was there, involved in a lot of like the zero knowledge proof conversations. There was an epic lecture from, oh shoot, I'm blanking on his name because I'm thinking right now. But there was a great lecture from one of the experts on zero knowledge at IOG who kind of, I felt like I was back in like a university level math class, trying my very best to keep up with the details. So stuff like that's going on. But on the other side, right, there were kind of more of the app developer facing conversations. So a lot of you know Wow, she's been here at Gimbalabs over the years. He wanted to have a conversation like, okay, based on what we know at this point, what would the perfect transaction building library look like? And we had a fun conversation about that. Jingles sat down at the table for that one. And then he called Hinson and he had Hinson on the FaceTime just to get some
Nice.
so that was a fun moment. Niels from, it's not called Hazelbot anymore, but Niels lives in the Northwest. What else is he working on? But he's been around
Nice.
for a long time. And he led a conversation about indexer options. And he did a great job. One of the outputs from that conversation was a Miro board that provides a mind map of different Cardano indexers and why people might want to use one or the other. And so I asked him for that link and if we could use it in the Plutus PBL course. He said, of course. So I'll make sure to share that link as one artifact. Oh, and then of course, and then there was a really fun. So some of you attended the playground presentation with Santi and Fede from TX Pipe, where they demoed Asteria. So we actually had like 20 people in a room playing Asteria together for the first time, trying to get the transactions to work and watching the spaceships move around the screen. That was a super fun experience that I wish everybody here could have. And I think that during the PBL course, we can at least approximate like a live version of that. And so I brought that to Claudio and Chris at Mesh Live Coding yesterday to start building out some of the transactions for playing around with Asteria and doing so in a way that allows us to create easier and more difficult iterations of the game, right? Because it's a headless app. It's a parameterized set of smart contracts. They can be instantiated many times with different parameters. So I think that's going to be a really, really compelling thread to follow. We've talked about that before in the PBL planning, but seeing it hands-on got me very, very excited to bring that back here.
Very cool. Yeah, I stopped in and they do an Asteria sort of community call on Mondays, and I stopped in and just listened in. It was, it was a bit over my head, but they're active and going. There's 5 or 6 folks in there really churning away, and yeah, that's great news to hear that it will be included in a very real way. The idea of a headless app that makes it kind of interesting because you're not the game, but a game of this that structure. So yeah, that's exciting to hear.
It's mind blowing. I know that part is so cool. And so, but here's the beautiful thing, right? Like to hear you say that you want to support kind of the community and governance elements of what we're doing more generally for PPBL, having you look at what we can produce for Asteria through that lens, right? Because it's fine on the TX Pipe Discord server. If the conversation is over some people's heads, that's just what it's going to be, right? Because they're building the thing. They have to have these conversations. Our job is to bring those conversations down to earth, right? And make sure that whoever shows up can kind of understand these concepts. And for example, the success metric is how many people can we get to the point of having their minds blown by the concept of a headless application, right? Let's go. All right, I was able to text myself this picture after all, so let me grab this. Just going old school. There it is, good. So yeah, here, let me see, can I pull that into here? Can I just, oh, for heaven's sake. I don't know. Copy, paste.
And with that in mind, like the because we've been doing this big experiment with gaming and role-playing games, and there's fun there, but there's this big gap, like giant valley that you have to get over, to get the context and all the things in it. But once you're actually playing the game, like really fun, meaningful problems and solutions present themselves, and you do it in a collaborative way, and all of that sort of effort and skill, knowledge kind of falls away, and you get back to, like, basically solving problems with your friends and collaborating. And I feel like those can happen, around building a transaction or fighting a big demon in a snake pit, so or flying your spaceship around, UTXO space. It's a cool. I think I'm very glad that this could be a feature of our community.
And what I'm proud of, even going back to the primary driver we created for Gimbalabs and just the space we have together cultivated here over the last few months, I'm confident that we can see that target of getting it across to people as like an asymptote, right? We're never going to fully get there. We're never going to be as fully there as we want to be, but we can incrementally and iteratively move towards it, right? We have this shared goal, we have this trust, and we know that we're going to express everything the best we can, and then we're going to try to get better at doing it.
Okay, I dig it.
We read these. Yeah, these are legible. So yeah, you can zoom in. You can kind of see what sticky notes showed up on the board, maybe see some familiar names here. So that's pretty cool to be able to share that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Neat. Thanks. Well, you see, I tried to keep it short, and then you get me going. I'll keep going. Thanks for the space, y'all. And yeah, if you have other questions, keep them coming. That's awesome.